back. Welcome to the Print Your Games podcast, the podcast about what's new and awesome in 3D printing for your gaming. I'm your host, Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Param, and I'm joined by
Kristen Sowards, also known as Seventh Mastery.
Kristen. Today's episode, when we get to the main topic, is one that has been asked for by several of our users. Alex and Andrew especially have been insisted on it, and we're happy to do it, but we had to do our research. We couldn't just do it immediately when we asked. We are going to be talking about how safe is 3D printing? Are
Dun,
we
dun, dun.
secretly trying to destroy the planet?
Well, if we're stupid, maybe.
I mean, maybe, but no. I'll be out, like, just to give you an up front here. We're going to talk about the safety issues and stuff, but I do think that the safety issues of 3D printing have been overblown massively in some communities as a way to sort of suppress 3D printing. You'll hear it a lot from the detractors of 3D printing or fans of a very certain game publisher.
Yeah, I might have run
Yeah.
into that a little bit on the
Yeah.
TikToks.
So before we jump into that, let's talk about what you've been doing. Anything cool going on? Anything that you've been working on right now?
I have recently been working on a Elder Brain that was really cool. It was from Cryptus Studios. It's really a neat model. Unfortunately, I didn't send you a picture of it, so I'm super sorry about that. But that's been a pretty big project. The second thing I've been doing is, again, for supporting Paint September Teal, which is an ovarian cancer awareness thing. I've been doing Monarch Squad, which are kind of Eldar proxies. I kind of wanted to use them maybe for Kill Team or OPR Skirmish. But that I'm painting up teal. It's fascinating because I used a Games Workshop Corax white, I want to say, on them.
Oh,
And it is taking the paint very unusual ways, like because I did a zenithal, right? And so really bright highlights, but it gets very shiny if it gets too thick, and so it can create some weird pooling. So I have, like, despite pretty much the same technique, that zenithal variation has caused all the models to look very different, and so I'm probably going to have to do another coat or anything before they're ready for prime time and pictures. But that's from Fantastical Sculpts, by the way, which some very unique models if you're just looking for something different and want to kind of switch it up, again, as proxies, or if you're playing something like OPR where you can make your own army up. Their paladin stuff's really neat too.
Yeah, their paladin stuff is very neat. And speaking of paladins, I've been drooling over the new Heroes Infinite set. Have you seen it? The Arthurian Legend set?
I have. It's very classic, which I was surprised. Like, normally they have a little more variation, but that was very, very classic.
Yeah. And we do expect that many of our users are going to have a lot of questions for us during this episode. If you do go and you're joining us live, go ahead and type those in the chat. We are more than happy to get to them. And if you've got any links or suggestions, do get those to us. The chat filter might filter out links, so sorry about that if it happens. So you'll have to message those links to us, and we'll share them after the episode. And if you are post-fact, we will address any questions from any of our audio listeners or people watching this after the live episode in the comment, like in a next episode. We'll address any questions we get. So do get those into us either in the comment section, emailing us over at podcast@printyourgames.com, or if you're in live chat right now, because we record live every Tuesday at 8:30 Eastern. Question, we'd love to address them.
You just had some audio stutter. I hope that didn't get...
Oh no! Yeah. What kind of audio stutter?
It was just lag, and I think it just kind of stuttered, like, right when you were talking about the show, like towards the end there.
All right. So 5 seconds of silence. 5 seconds of silence is so that I can see it on the waveform and easily get to this to edit it later.
Gotcha.
So what have I been doing?
Yes.
I have been organizing my paint collections. That sounds boring, but
no,
I'm getting ready to do an entire reshuffle of my paint area.
I have seen what you're getting, and I'm so excited by it.
I will talk about that when it comes in. Okay. But one of the things I've done in preparation for that is, look what Monument Hobby sent me.
Are those
These are lids.
new
These are
lids?
lids for the Pro Acryl bottles.
Okay.
So
Okay.
Pro Acryl bottles, I like Pro Acryl paint. It's my favorite paint. And but it has this cool dropper lid, but sometimes it can get crusty on top. But it's
Yep.
great because you can see what the color is.
That's why I
wonderful.
don't mind it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And normally I wouldn't care, but it does make it just a little taller than your average bottle. So
That's
cut
adorable
down
that
on
that's
the
concerning to
height.
you. My paint
Well,
my
especially if
paint
I'm going to be
situation would horrify you.
well, especially since I'm going to be shoving them into a thing that has a limited height soon,
Yeah.
that I will talk about later when I have. I don't know. I can talk about now. I'm ordering the Frontier Wargaming Paint Case 2.0. I bought one of these for my sister already, and it's awesome. So I love it, and I'm going to use it here because I go to a lot of painting events, and I go to a lot of people's houses to just do paint nights, and being able to travel with my kit because it would be great because right now I'm taking the stuff I want and putting it into a little plastic bin, and then I'm coming home and then unpacking it and getting my stuff reorganized again. And when I'm painting, I want my stuff organized. Like all my paint is like completely organized: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet, indigo.
So wait, you go color, not brand?
Yeah. Well, no, brands are separated, but then they are then color
Okay.
sorted.
Okay, I get that. I get that.
Yeah.
Looks like C Catlet in the chat, 1984, has sent some links to us for safety information that might be good.
Awesome. Thank you. We'll get to those after the episode, or I won't be able to review them in the middle of the episode. But thank you very much, and we'll review those and make it an addendum next episode.
Were you showing the lid situation there for a
Yes.
second? I was looking over at that and I didn't see it, so show it again.
So with the new lids, it makes them substantially shorter.
Okay, so
and my
there's
finger substantially greener.
Sure. Snap flaps, though, so that you can just dropper them out.
Yeah, it's still a dropper bottle.
Yeah. Okay.
But
so another reason why I like that, and maybe somebody listening will hear this and it'll save them something. There is an alarming volume of space in that long tip on those Pro Acryl, and I have had, if I don't use that color enough, it dry out and get weird in there. I do like the length of the tip for getting it onto my palette, but it also, I feel like it's wasting a lot of paint. So, I'll be
putting these in a bag. I won't be throwing them out in case I change my mind and this was a terrible idea.
But smart.
But these are the same lids that the Vallejo metal color use.
Okay.
And they do get very messy. But this is airbrush paint, so it's a lot more fluid.
Yeah.
C. Catlet says, I went with plastic cases for alcohol ink dropper bottles. Hold 77 each. That is a cool idea. I've seen a few of those on Amazon and a few people going with those. But that sounds like a great choice.
I got some plastic coated styrofoam paint racks, and they're really light and cheap. And I like them so far, but they don't work for Citadel. And that's Citadel fat pots are the bane of my existence for so many reasons. When I'm not knocking them over, they're getting stuck in my paint racks. They have one little big row, but it's just way too few. Yeah.
I only have one tiny drawer full of Citadel paints. That's where I tried to use them as my main paint for a little while, and that didn't last.
Don't you have a little hex grid thing too?
That's for my contrast paints and the ones I like. Yeah, I do have that. That's great. The little hex holders that Citadel sells. I put that up on my wall next to my paint stuff. It's all right here, directly to my right, because I like to have my paint station near my editing computer, so that when I have 5 minutes and I'm editing an episode and it's time for something to render, turn around, paint some boots on a soldier. I get 5 minutes of paint time in every few minutes, and then suddenly at the end of the day, you got a great painted model.
There you go.
C. Catlett says, I only like pots for washes or contrast paints. I do agree. Contrast paints being in pots is actually a good thing, and I kind of wish the Army Painter stuff was in pots. It does make it a lot easier with the Army Painter stuff to mix custom colors, though, which is great.
Sure. I also don't like putting either contrast paints or speed paints on a wet palette. I've noticed that causes some weirdness for me.
Yeah, I do keep a ceramic tile, the very dirty ceramic tile at this point. I need to clean it, but I keep this by my desk. This is a half ceramic tile. Go the full Duncan Rhodes experience.
Nice.
And speaking of the full Duncan Rhodes experience, we were talking about safety.
Same.
No, Duncan Rhodes has nothing to do with safety. But the topic of the day is resin, not resin, is 3D, how safe is 3D printing? Like, what are the safety issues for 3D printing? We're going to talk about safety issues for resin 3D printing because it has the most to talk about, but we're also going to be talking about safety issues with FDM 3D printing and our experiences there, and especially what not to do. We're going to have that at the end. We're going to talk about the things we've seen you really should never do.
The things we've seen in safety videos, which is
We've been
terribly
researching
concerning.
For this. Oh my gosh, we've been researching this episode, and some of the stuff, some of y'all need some education.
Ugh,
Speaking of education, I'm not a chemist. I'm
Neither
not
am
a
I.
safety officer. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not the member of the FDA. I've got no special qualifications other than being an enthusiast in this hobby to talk about safety issues. So everything you're going to be hearing from me has been stuff from other sources, sources that I will talk about during the episode and refer you to. I will tell you a fantastic video to watch that will summarize the resin stuff very well is Goober Town's video on how resin 3D printing works. That is a wonderful half-hour video that talks
And
about
he is a chemist.
Yeah, he is a PhD chemist and knows what he's talking about,
yes.
so that helps.
Definitely recommend that video for sure.
That's a wonderful video to watch, and it will put a lot of concerns to rest. But so let's get into it. Is it safe to 3D print at all? Are we just having horrible death machines in our closets and garages?
I think that answer is entirely on how you treat them.
Right. All right. So let's start with the easy one, FDM. Mm-hmm. FDM 3D printing. I know resin's got the most hype on this topic, but there are some safety concerns with FDM printing, and I think we'll get through these faster. Probably. With FDM 3D printing, whenever you melt plastic for any reason, it will start to give off fumes, and those fumes are bad for people in general. There are various levels of toxicity to filaments. The most popular filament to use for our hobby is PLA, and it has an extremely low toxicity and is generally considered not a safety concern to have that printer operating near you in your house. FDM 3D printing with PLA is pretty darn safe. So don't worry about it. I wouldn't, keep it in my bedroom next to my head while it was running all night.
Sure.
But I have no problem with it in the hobby room at all.
And there's a couple things you may or may not think of, especially like I know people that buy these for kids. And I think that's great as long as the kid respects them.
Right.
But the hot end on that thing is going to get 190 to 210 degrees
Celsius.
And it's going to burn the hell out of you.
Yeah. So it's melting plastic and then putting it on a hot bed, if you got a good one, to make a cool toy. That plastic gets hot, that hot end gets hot, that bed is hot. It is a burn hazard. Also, we like to clean this stuff with alcohol. Don't store the alcohol directly next to the printer. Also,
don't store anything flammable near the printer.
Yeah, seriously, don't. And also, some earlier printers used to have a problem called thermal runoff, which is definitely something you need to be aware of, where basically it quit telling the hot end to stop being hot, and it would just run away and get super hot and catch fire. And in some extreme situation that has caused a house fire. This is not a major problem with more modern 3D printers that have safety measures in place to stop that from happening and are built to better quality. But definitely with earlier, older 3D printers, especially DIY stuff, you want to be careful with that. And so, keep it away in the area away from wood or burnable things. I keep my printer on a ceramic slab so that, if it catches fire,
it's cookie sheets.
Oh, well, poor
metal
printer.
cookie sheets.
Yeah.
usually.
Which is not going to happen, but and I don't store any flammable stuff near it. So with FDM 3D printing, filament based 3D printing, PLA is pretty safe,
Mhm.
but then from then on up with like ABS is not safe. Not safe
Yeah.
at all. You do not want to be in the same room with something printing ABS. Nylon is super toxic.
Mhm.
Also, I'm going to hate on nylon. I hate printing in nylon. I hate anytime I try to print in nylon, it is a disaster. I get a molten, lumpy piece of nonsense. I do not like printing in nylon. I know some people love it because it is like super heat resistant and flexible and a great thing to have. And there's lots of reasons you would want to. I'm just
Yep.
not a fan myself.
Yep.
And so I just stick with PLA, and PETG is another one that is fairly safe to print with. And it's like all the good stuff that ABS has with much less of the downsides, but you do have to have like a pretty hot printer. Like that requires a printer that can print very hot. And also it loves to meld itself to the build plate permanently, especially
Yep.
glass beds. So be
Yep.
careful with that. Other than
Um,
that,
I've got a couple
basic
others.
safeties with electronics. Sure. Okay.
Couple others. If you are not paying attention and it is finishing an area of the print, the hot head's going to move fast, and
Mm-hmm.
no loose clothing, no jewelry.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, if you're not paying attention, you can get pinched. You can actually get
Ouch.
pinned and pinched or caught in the runners, and that
Mm-hmm.
can hurt and hurt you. So just
Yeah.
watch it. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's a machine. Respect it. I guess
Mm-hmm.
that was something. And then if you're one of these modders, and I love you all you people who swap out every original piece on the thing, just make sure you're insulating your electrical stuff. Most of these frames are metal, and they can conduct from even a minor electrical breach where the system suddenly is bleeding out. First off, it's going to screw up your print. It's going to screw up your printer, and
It's
second
going to
off,
short out your main board too. That's
yeah,
going to suck.
and it could shock you. So like
Yeah.
just in general, just be really careful if you're doing anything on your electrical wiring.
Right.
Um,
It's an electronic piece of machine that gets hot. There are some ways to be. There are some safety things you can consider.
yeah,
You can get enclosures that
that's
have
what I was getting.
ventilation. That's a
Absolutely.
great way to deal with. Hey, I need to print in. It's like ABS has some properties that people love. Like there's a reason people love to print in ABS. Um, it does alcohol smoothing as an option. That is also an extremely dangerous thing to do, but
Mhm.
that is a thing that can be done with ABS. And so having an enclosure is a way to deal with the fume aspect of it,
Mhm.
especially if the enclosure is also a fire protective enclosure, so that if there is thermal runoff or other issues, then it's all contained within the box that the printer's in.
Right. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that jumps out at me here. See, C Catlet says enclosure also helps you to get the printer up to temp and for
Yes.
nylon. Yes,
Mhm.
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And as
And you
speaking of
can
getting up
and you
to
can get
temp,
filters.
your your hot plate can get hot enough to scald you usually too.
Hmm.
It's not going to probably like blister you usually,
Hmm.
but it can get hot enough to scald you.
Yeah. So what we're saying there is even those safety concerns that shouldn't scare you. Even if you need to print in ABS or nylon, this shouldn't scare you. You just need to treat it like you're careful with tools. Your
Yep,
3D printer is a tool.
it's a
So
hot
yeah,
machine
yeah.
that bleeds off fumes sometimes.
So there's just basic safety concerns to deal with, and as long as you're aware of them and treat it with respect, you'll be okay. And that also applies to resin 3D printing, the big boogeyman in the room. Ooh, resin, it's
Dun, dun, dun,
toxic.
dun.
It's toxic.
I mean, it is a
It
little.
is toxic, yeah, a little bit. So the thing about resin is you don't usually have to worry about the fire or heat issues. The resin printers don't really have much of that problem going on with them. They don't get super hot because heat is not an element of it. It is all about using UV light onto a reactive material to solidify it. And it's just any sort of UV resin. UV resin is something that has been in the hobby for ages and ages and ages. It is something you have to treat with respect, but it is not an inherently dangerous thing. It is. I like to say that it's no different than handling bleach to clean your bathroom. You have to treat the bleach with respect. You need to treat the resin with respect. It is any other household chemical that has a safety concern, or it's just the same. Honestly, the stuff we use to clean the prints concerns me more on the safety level than the actual resin itself. Like the methylated spirits and the acetone, that worries me more than the resin I'm using.
Well, and even alcohol can actually interact with the resin to break
Mm-hmm.
it down and make it so that it is more permeable and can get into your body and cause more irritation. So actually,
Yeah.
uncured resin during the alcohol cleaning phase is actually slightly more dangerous than it is in the tank.
And we're talking about slightly. So we're saying
Slightly.
it's toxic. What does the toxic mean? Let's actually talk about the things. Now, first, again, not chemist, not any special safety person,
Not health
but we,
specialists.
yep. We're just enthusiasts that have educated ourselves as best we could from experts and data sheets and safety manuals and really bad YouTube videos and really good YouTube videos. So how is the resin toxic? Well, it is extremely poisonous to drink. Do not drink the resin. You will have a bad day. You might be your last day.
Yeah.
It's not great. It like if and for that reason you need to keep it away from children and pets.
Pets.
In my experience, pets want nothing to do with it.
Generally true.
Yeah, but do be careful. Like, don't make it around the pets.
My biggest experience with pets is sometimes they become interested in the motion of the printer, like particularly cats. But usually the smell is enough that they're like, hell no.
Mhm.
But
Right.
yeah.
Right. It is a mild. Besides that,
BJ's here.
hey BJ,
She was planning on drinking it. I'm sure BJ.
Yeah,
I really believe
it's,
you.
it is tempting because, like, have you seen the mint green? It looks like
It
it's
does
supposed
kinda
to be
like-
food.
It's your
but
forbidden
it's not
milkshake.
food.
Forbidden
Do
milkshake.
not drink the forbidden milkshake. It is
Sorry.
poisonous. That is the biggest safety concern with the resin. Do not ingest the resin. The other issue is you don't want to get it into your eyes
No.
or any cuts you have. That's bad.
I
Not
have
as
got
bad
it in
as
my
drinking
eyes,
it.
for
Yeah,
sure.
I have gotten it in my eyes before. It burned and it was terrible and it
it's
was not
9
great.
times worse once you go outside because then it cures in your eye.
Oh yeah, that is the other one. Is if you get resin on you, it is an irritant. It is a skin irritant. It can produce an allergic reaction. So different people will have different severities of reaction if it gets on your skin. The liquid resin. It is not usually a horrible thing, but you do not want to get the resin on your skin. The liquid resin on your skin. So always wear neoprene gloves when you are handling the resin. Not latex gloves. The resin actually will pass through latex. So use neoprene gloves with your
Nitrile.
printer when you're handling the resin. Nitrile,
Also-
not nitrile. That's the one.
Yeah.
Not neoprene. The nitrile ones.
Nitrile.
If
What,
it
you
does,
get it on you, BJ?
BJ Henley asks, "What do we do if it gets on you?"
You get it off. You
wash
use
it.
soap
Mm-hmm.
and water. You do not use your alcohol at all. 'Cause
Don't do
again, we
that.
talked about why it'll make it worse, more penetrating. So yeah, you wash it, and quite frankly, if you can, take a shower because you might have got it somewhere else very quickly.
I've never gone as severe as the shower. I always do wash, like I do the doctor scrub. And honestly,
yeah.
I
Elbow.
wash my hands after I handle resin anyway, just as a safety precaution. 'Cause I just
Absolutely.
like go to the elbows I go to my sink, I put a little bit of Dawn dishwashing liquid on my hands, and I scrub up to my elbows and rinse it off. How long do you wash your hands if you get on? You don't. It doesn't take long. It's like literally nothing to get it off.
It's
of
almost like we had some other event recently that taught us we should wash our hands for about 20 seconds. It's
See, that was perfect because I had gotten into doing the lots of washing my hands like 4 or 5 times a day, and then COVID hit, and we were good. Yeah, honestly, it's just a quick wash. It takes no time to get this stuff off you with the soap. And if it gets on you, like, don't panic. Just like, oh, the resin's on me. Go to the sink and wash your
Yeah,
hands.
I have done more damage overreacting when I got a spill on it, and then knocked it over, like knocked the bottle over or whatever, and created a bigger spill. So just stay calm, get yourself in there to clean up, and don't freak out because you're gonna do more damage probably.
Yeah, and I will recommend like glasses or safety glasses because I did get it in my eye once from a splash, and it was terrible, and it burned, and we were able to wash it out. But if that does happen, you may need to seek medical. Like if it gets worse and worse, like that might be a hospital visit.
Yeah, if it hurts for more than a little bit, or you get it like James says here, you got to trace them out in his mouth.
Oh my gosh, no! I've never gotten it in my mouth before.
I have once, and it tastes very bad. But
I'm glad it tases very bad.
So I'm the control. No, you're the control. I'm the experiment. So if I die first from using resin, it's because I'm less safe than Param. So we can kind of do a live experiment.
The worst I've ever gotten was I had the situation where I forgot to screw down the vat, and then the print pulled the vat all the way up full of resin because I had just topped it off.
Oh dear.
And then I was reached over to grab it, and it fell and splashed my entire arm. And I had resin all down my arm, and like I had my glove on, but that didn't matter because I didn't have a glove down to here. And so I was like, oh no. And I had the situation where the resin was getting everywhere, and I had to hold on to it for a little bit longer. So I had to stay on my arm for a little bit while I waited for somebody to come and help me. And then I went to wash it off, and I was fine.
So I had a similar one where I was moving, because I've been moving to set up a new studio upstairs, and I was moving my printer. But when I had taken my last print off, I had just slid the plate back on without tightening it.
Oh no!
So no! Cautionary tale to everybody: tighten your plate when you put it back on immediately, because it slid off, dropped into the tank from the full height to the thing. I'm just glad it didn't shatter any glass, frankly, because I have seen that happen, especially if there's a print still on it. But it didn't. But it did. Half full resin tank, completely spilled over. I had to stop it from getting in the grooves where it was going to go down and get on internal stuff, and it went over. Fortunately, this was on a cookie sheet again, so it rolled over. There were rims, and it was a big honking mess to clean up, and very probably nerve-wracking. But
the worst part of the spill isn't that it got on you; it's that you have to clean up afterwards because
yes, it is.
Washing my hands, a quick shower, because it got all over me. That's all you need. Now then again, here's the other kicker: just because we were able to do that and washing the hands doesn't mean that you don't worry about it at all and not wear your gloves. The one trick with resin is that your resistance to the resin skin contact deteriorates over time. It builds
a lot of
up.
allergens are like that.
Yeah. Your allergy will get worse and worse and worse the more exposure you get. So do not do it on purpose. And some people will just have a naturally bad allergic reaction right away and break out on their skin if they touch it at all. I've seen that. And I've seen some people that are super resistant to it, and they don't wear gloves at all. Do not be that person, because that is a bad time waiting to happen. Yeah. You do, if you're sensitive to the fumes, you might want to wear a mask. Definitely work in a ventilated area or use a filter. So you do want to use a filter, or basically the air, the VOCs, the fumes are an irritant and an allergen as well. Not a humongous safety concern there, but wear a mask or have a filter or have it well ventilated. I treat it like airbrushing, where I make sure I'm exposed to that as little as possible. And this is why you don't want a resin 3D printer in like a bedroom or anything. Now, I will say that once I got my little activated charcoal filters, I'm using the Elegoo, the little portable ones.
I just started using them too.
Yeah,
they're really
they
good.
are wonderful. Like it just sucks that stuff up.
How long does your charge last on those? I was just curious.
I usually last all night. So it comes with a 2-pack. I have one on charge and one in the printer, and I'll swap them whenever I do a print.
Oh, you don't put them both in there?
Yeah, this is activated charcoal filter. That is what I'm using, C-Catlet. And no, I don't put both of them in there. I swap them. and it works fine. And like it is noticeable. The room smells super air fresh when you're in there when the filter's running. And that's like a $30 investment I would recommend anybody do.
I kind
And
of feel like I'm going to knock it over into the tank sometimes.
I've done that. Don't worry about that.
Oh no.
I've also had it a little too close to the print gantry, and it like came down and like grinded the gears of my machine once. That was not great.
I will also throw out really quick while we're on the subject. You do get 2 extra filters, I believe. So
yeah, you do get some extra, and you can order new filters, or you could just go get some activated charcoal and fill the thing up. It is literally just a hollow tube with activated charcoal in it.
But it looks so neat.
It looks super great. And modern printers, the Mars 3, the Saturn 2, they have built-in like places for the filters to go, or even built-in filters. Those printers are super great for if you're concerned with the fumes aspect of it. And basically, as long as you treat this resin with a little bit of basic safety and respect, don't drink it, try not to get in your eyes, wash your freaking hands. The resin is mostly fine. It's a mild irritant and a super poison for drinking, but that's it.
Yeah. BJ says, so how do you have these even have them safely in your house? I actually have a designated room for it, and that room stays shut.
So if you have a room that is not used very well and has good ventilation, like a mud room or your garage, those are perfect places for the printer. Or you can, if you have a room that's a little bit more active, don't make it a bedroom or your main living quarters, but like your office or a crafting room, definitely go with the filters. Put it on a silicone mat, and if you can, put it in an enclosure and vent it out. But as long as that's mostly safe, as long as you're doing the filters or the ventilation to have. Again, don't put it in a room that you're going to spend like all of your time in, like a bedroom. You definitely don't. I wouldn't sleep next to a resin printer.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, grow tent is a great way. There's lots of like super cheap enclosures you can throw this printer in, and that's fine. Like throw it in an enclosure and have a filter. Like just throw the filter in the natural printer's enclosure, and you're usually fine. That's like you can have it in a house without too much concern, as long as you treat it safely. Again, like treat it like the resin, like bleach, with similar safety concerns. And you'll be a good long way towards using it with respect and safety. So always use gloves.
I've been using. I have a window in that room. The one thing I always try to remind myself, and it's so easy to forget, is if you're getting your prints out or whatever, either make sure blinds are down or make sure it's nighttime, because all it takes is a few seconds of sunlight to give you a big rippling hard
little film on top of your printer. That's not great. It's not the end of the world. Just pick that thing up and throw it away. So I always use gloves when you're handling the prints and the resin. Once the print is solid and washed and cured, it is benign.
Yeah, I think that's something to point out. The uncured resin is the big issue.
Yeah, the model when it's done is fine. It's the only safety concern is the liquid form. Don't drink it, and it's going to have an allergic reaction on your skin if you let it contact your bare skin. So use gloves.
One of the parts that I've noticed that I have the biggest danger during is I've printed it off. I've got my alcohol bath.
Right.
And I'm getting ready to deal with the supports. So the supports will perforate your gloves if you're not careful.
Right.
And they can perforate your skin and get resin right into you. So like that can be irritating as hell. So like be careful with that. Also, if you're peeling that back, we talked about diluted alcohol resin being more a little more penetrating through your skin. You got to be careful. Like if you're bending it off, there's sometimes uncured resin and fluid on the raft, and it can snap back. And that's how I got it in my eye.
Yeah,
that's how I got it in my eye. That's alcohol and diffused resin into my eye, and that was a bad scene.
Yeah, it is exactly how I got mine in my eye too. So and since then I've started making sure I'm wearing glasses or safety glasses when I'm handling the resin.
Super smart, and I probably should be more.
I remove the supports before curing. Yes, James, because otherwise you ruin the print. So how I handle it for the most safety. And in fact, I've developed a procedure right now to where I will put on fresh gloves before I do a print clean, and those gloves will be spotless when I'm done.
See you, BJ.
Yeah. So what I do is I have a wash and cure machine that is sized for my printer. So I've got a matching. I got the Mars Mercury X bundle for my Saturn, and so what I do is when I'm done with my print, I take the print, bed and all, and put it into the wash machine because it's designed to do that.
Yeah,
I
I
run
do
the
not have
wash.
this luxury currently. That
Yeah,
that sounds like it would be good.
I will
Sorry, go
talk.
ahead.
I will talk to what I did before I got this thing too. But I put it in there. It washes my print entirely, super clean. I pull it out. There's no cured resin on my rafts. It's all clean. I then take it off the plate. I have one of those little mag plates, so I just pull the mag plate off. It flexes right off. Everything comes detached immediately, and throw it immediately into my bin of warm water that I got from the tap. I have a little tub that's dedicated to the resin machine. Like this little bowl never gets used for anything else. As soon as you use something with the printer in resin, just assume it's never going back
It's
to the kitchen.
it's contaminated. Yeah, you need to just
Yeah.
handle it like it's
If
part
you
of.
if you need to, you can clean it in alcohol and all that jazz. But I just don't want to bother with
Yeah,
that.
I wouldn't. I would just designate it as this now belongs to this.
Yeah. So I just get some hot water from the tap, and then I put my print in there. This softens the resin a little bit and lets me peel the supports off effortlessly. And I get perfectly awesome little prints. I put those onto a little paper towel to wick off any of the water. It's actually the water is harder to wick off than the alcohol because the alcohol evaporates so fast.
Yep,
I use I
100%.
use denatured alcohol to wash my prints. I used to use acetone, but that's not compatible with the wash and cure machines. Denatured alcohol is pretty much as strong as you want to go with those.
Gotcha.
And then I put it into the cure machine. But if you just have a cure chamber, it's the same thing.
Yep.
And then once it's done there, you can handle it with bare skin. I mean,
Yep.
honestly, once it was done with the wash, you can handle it with bare skin, but you want to be careful. So don't yet.
And I would say definitely back to the warm water support trick. If you're not doing that, your supports become incredibly brittle after they're cured. Like,
More snappy problems.
yeah, more
spiky
snappy,
problems.
more piercing. And here's a dumb one, but like when you're popping those off, be careful because little pieces will flip off. They then land on the ground, and if you're not careful, like you're using a carpeted room, and that gets cured by the sunlight later through the window or whatever. Now you've got this perfectly cured resin piece, or worse, possibly semi-cured that has some uncured resin on it, and that thing will go right into your foot.
Do be careful to make sure you clean your station and don't have little resin shards.
Yeah, because they will
yeah.
just snap off and shoot everywhere. If you're
And
not careful.
once I'm done with that, I take the little towel and I wrap all my little, like I always put a fresh paper towel down when I'm working, and I put all my resin bits, like my sprue bits, my supports there. I wrap all of the stuff and all the dirty stuff. I wash my little scraper if I use the scraper. In the alcohol bath, and then wipe it clean with the paper towel. I wrap it all up in the paper towel into a tight little ball. I hold it in my gloved hand, pull the glove over the paper towel,
Yep.
grab it with my other gloved hand, pull that glove over the first glove, and I have a nice little bundled, safe little thing to toss in the trash.
Yep.
And at no point in time did resin get anywhere close to me.
Yeah. I would, because my curing station, washing station is not as sophisticated as yours. And I've noticed that occasionally I'll still have a little bit of resin residue get into my water. And that is concerning because, of course, it's still uncured. So this is an admonition to people who are listening. If you're in a situation where you don't have a sophisticated setup, that you make sure that water gets exposed to UV light, either from a cure or from the sun, so that can become solid particulate and not be dangerous entering your pipes or into the water supply or getting in a pet. Yikes.
And now we're entering the actual safety issues with any sort of 3D printing, specifically resin. That's the rough stuff. Is the wash liquid is actually where things get a little bit tricky.
Yeah.
Do not pour that down the drain. Do not do that. You are
No.
ruining the environment around you. You are poisoning your groundwater. You're doing all sorts of terrible crap. Do not do that.
You also might destroy your plumbing.
Yeah. Also, probably kill your septic tank. Don't do that. Do not do that. So what you do with the wash water is, if you're lucky, you can semi filter it and reuse it. But what I do is I take my wash water that when it's too dirty to keep washing prints with.
This is water, not alcohol. Just to be clear.
This is sorry, I'm talking about the alcohol.
Okay, you keep saying
Yeah.
water, so I just wanted to make sure we were talking about the
wash
right
water. Same thing, but actually, my wash water usually doesn't even get like my washes. If I've noticed something cloudy, that's my cue that it's time to change the alcohol.
thing. Correct. Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's usually not as bad. But go on. Sorry, you talk about your
there's
alcohol.
2 ways I've handled it in the past. I have a big old jug of contaminated alcohol. It's got uncured resin floating in it from cleaning all these prints. So what I went to do is I bought a turkey pan from my local grocery store for $1.
Okay.
It's a giant metal pan.
Yep.
I pour the alcohol very carefully into the pan, set that out into the sun. What will then happen is the alcohol evaporates.
Yep.
The resin gets cured by the sunlight and becomes inert. Yeah, it becomes a sheet of plastic or like a gooey thing, the gooiness. That then gets put in a trash bag and tossed away.
Yep.
I have to do that about once a month if I'm printing a ton, or once every other month if I'm being real lazy with printing. If you're lucky and catch it early enough, the other thing I've done successfully is I pour it into a gallon jug, a clear gallon jug, like a milk jug that's been washed out.
Mm-hmm.
I set that jug outside. The sun cures the resin particles and it becomes dust that settles at the bottom. I carefully siphon the top off.
And
that's reusable alcohol.
Yeah.
And I can use that again a few more times.
I have tried to do that, and I think maybe about 1 in 3 times do I get a substantial amount of alcohol back. Usually it's just a hot mess.
And then you throw the rest away. It's just fine at that point. Let the alcohol evaporate off, throw the jug away. And I've got about 50-50 chance. It's all about how long you waited. If you're early enough to where you don't get your gunk super full of uncured resin, it works fine. But the second that I let it go a little too long, I'm just going to end up with a jug full of goo.
Yeah, it's super.
And if I get a jug full of goo, open the top, let the alcohol evaporate off of it during the day, and then throw the jug away.
Yeah.
Because once the sun has cured it, it's inert, it's safe.
Again, these containers, if they're kitchen containers, need to be probably marked and just still considered not kitchen things anymore.
Yeah, well, this is like an empty jug of milk.
Well, I'm just saying,
I'm not going to use that again.
Sometimes, I made a mistake once of using. We got some storage bins, like they're from restaurant supply store. Speaking of which, the restaurant supply store is your best friend if you're just looking for random stuff for tools and tongs and stuff. But anyway, some of those bins got contaminated, and we also used some for food. So I'm like, okay, I need to make sure these are marked or thrown away.
Right. So. All right. Any other major safety tips for these? Put a mat down under your printer is a good safety tip. Yeah, I use silicone mats. You use baking trays. Both are awesome options.
Basically anything non-porous is what we would probably suggest.
Yeah. And the reason I use silicone is it's super easy to clean. I can throw that mat out into the sun, and then then I can just wash it with alcohol, and it's good to go.
Yeah, I'll probably be moving to those shortly because I've seen a lot of really good techniques with it and things that you can do with them for other crafting projects. So.
Right.
Are we going to talk about horrible things we saw?
Getting another safety tip is get some silicone tongs.
Yeah.
So that you can use that to get the minis in and out of the alcohol or acetone without reaching in with your gloves. That reduces contact and chances that you're going to get any bad things on you. The tongs are wonderful. If I'm using tongs, I almost never get resin even on the gloves, and I can reuse the gloves.
Yeah, I think your mag plate's a great idea to just make things a little
I don't
safer.
know that I'm going to recommend mag plates.
No?
I use one. Sometimes it's wonderful, Sometimes it sucks. I don't know that it's a great solution.
Hmm.
I know some people love it and some people
I got one to
don't like
install
it.
it, but I
Uh huh.
wanted another build plate. So I ordered another build plate for Elegoo for my Saturn, and I
Hmm.
still haven't got it. It's been 3 months.
I would rat Elegoo. That's unusual for them.
So yeah, it's weird.
Hmm.
Um, C Catlet
Hmm.
84 says silicon spatula. This
Great
is what I
choice.
was going to talk about because uh, I where do you store that? What do you do with the spatulas
Oh,
and stuff?
I
That's what
store. I clean
that's what
them
I
and
want to
keep
hear.
them next to the printer. I clean them and keep them right next to the printer on the metal
Just
or
like
on the silicone
on
mat.
your okay,
Yeah.
so you just
Yeah.
leave them out lying about because that was one of the problems I've run into is I'm clumsy and I knock
Hmm.
over things and stuff. I think I need some sort of like rack or something,
Hmm.
and I haven't found the ideal
Hmm.
tool holder for my resin
Right.
printing station. I
Hmm.
want one. So if anybody hears and has a great solution, I think of like a lot of the
Hmm.
store fixtures and plexi fixtures that I used to use
Hmm.
when I was in a retail job, and I think there's got to be something like that.
Right.
C Catlett says lock and lock plastic container that fits in.
It's a good
Okay.
choice. That's what I keep my tool, like my Allen wrenches and spare screen protectors and things in, as a in a locking Tupperware container.
The kind for celery. Okay.
Ooh,
That's
I
the right
like
thing. I
that.
mean, that's about the right dimensions. I could
Mhm.
see that.
Yeah. Oh, the other resin hazard we hinted at. The one of the worst things that can happen with resin is if you get it on your skin and don't notice it, and then go out into the sunlight, because then it has a thermic reaction and will burn you.
Yeah.
And if you ever see like real horror story pictures, like there's one that goes around like this dude that's like, I spilled resin all over my leg, and you can see his legs like covered in burn marks. What happened is the dude spilled resin on his leg, left it there for hours because they, and then went out into the sun, and the resin cured while it was still on his leg, and
And
that was
possibly
bad time.
semi permeated, and that would be
Yeah.
bad things. Yeah.
That's not great. That's why I always wash my hands immediately after I handle the, even if I didn't get anything on me. Just, it's never a bad idea to wash your hands at any time of day anyway. So like, I'm just washing my hands today.
It's true. It's true. And your skin as that gets in there, your skin is actually translucent for several
Mhm.
layers, and so even if it's permeating in there, you can get like some curing going on. In yeah, it's bad. Don't do it.
Oh, now is the fun topic. What not to do. The horror stories we've seen researching this topic.
Yes.
I'll say the first one is an easy one. I
Okay.
won't name names, but somebody insisting that they never wear gloves while working with resin. They just stick their whole hand in the vat. It's not a
Oh,
problem. That is terrible. Even if you are lucky enough that you have a strong resistance to the resin, that's going to degrade every single time you touch it.
yeah, and you're gonna get it under your nail beds and stuff. Like there's
Hmm.
some sensitive areas that are gonna be a lot
Hmm.
worse to get
Yeah.
it under there. No, no, no.
Always wear gloves when you're working with resin, just as a safety precaution, straight
Absolutely.
up. Always wear gloves. You don't want this stuff on your skin. Um, and like if it gets on your skin accidentally, don't panic about it. Just go calmly go wash it off. But that's not an excuse to do it on purpose.
Yep. Yeah. I'm going to throw out as a follow up to that. Check your resin. If you have a substantial reservoir of resin remaining, and you have a spatula or whatever, check it for, especially if you're not 100%. I mean, 100% sure your print was entirely successful, because you're going to get a couple things that happen if like a partial fail or piece falls off or whatever. You're going to have the possibility of your bed driving that piece through your FEP into your glass screen,
Right.
which is going to perforate it, spill resin, and destroy your printer probably. Um,
That's the part that sucks the most.
yeah. I mean, that last one sucks, but it's also going to cause all these other hazards we've been talking about. Um, and then you also have to make sure you're doing the right thing. I saw, again, not naming names,
Mm-hmm.
someone who recommended using a business card to stir the resin vat. And
Mm.
business cards are, they have printed chemicals on them that could possibly interact with your resin. It's a porous substance, so that thing better be going into a cure station or whatever, or out in the sun,
Right.
and then thrown away carefully because that thing is going to be dangerous. And they were recommending this in a safety video.
What I use to stir my resin are those like you can get 20 for like $7 plastic spatulas. They probably gave you one with your printer. You can actually order those by bulk for super cheap. I ordered a bulk pack, and I just use it to stir my resin and check for boogers on my FEP between prints. And it's super. Or you can get one made of silicone if you want one that's even better for
Yeah, that's
this.
probably what I need to upgrade to, because right now I'm using the plastic one that came with one of my Anycubics,
Hmm.
and it's got a curve on it that I really don't like. It doesn't actually get everywhere. David says, wear gloves, wash hands, and still feel like I can taste it. Yeah, I definitely feel like sometimes if I've been around
Oh,
it for a long time,
if
it
I
feels
have a
like,
spot that I missed, I will get a taste in my mouth, and then I know when I feel that I know I missed a spot.
yeah,
Now don't rely on taste in your mouths, wash up and everything. But like I got a spot on my leg once when I was wearing shorts, and I didn't notice it, but I felt the taste a few minutes later, and then I was like, okay, I got to find it. It's on me
yeah.
somewhere.
That point is when I go to the shower. As soon as I'm like, I have resin somewhere on me and I don't know where it is,
Hmm.
that's when I go. Clothes go in the laundry machine. I go to the shower
Hmm.
because I'm not gonna suss out where that is. It's just gonna get worse. I'm gonna
Hmm.
be eating it or something, or in my
Right.
face or eye or nose.
Yeah. I've seen several people say they pour their alcohol down the drain.
No.
That is a terrible advice, even if it wasn't resin alcohol. It was just normal alcohol. Don't pour normal alcohol down your drain. But resin, definitely don't do that. You're doing tons and tons of bad stuff to you. Do not do that. Oh my gosh. What else? What else? What else? What's some other horror stories you've seen?
Using a kitchen baster to move resin is recommended by a lot of people, but it
Okay.
gets an entirely coated thing with liquid uncured resin inside of it that then becomes a source of
Right.
potential contamination. So I would just be very, very careful with a pipette.
Hmm.
I'd probably recommend something that you could then alcohol clean very well.
I use a one of those big giant plastic syringes for this purpose. It's dedicated to this purpose. It doesn't get used for anything else. It's dedicated printer material. And what I do with that is I use that to pull the resin out because that's safer than trying to hand pour it.
Yeah,
And then I immediately go over to my alcohol tank and suck in and out a bunch of alcohol
yeah,
through it to clean it.
yeah. C Catlets were recommending the same thing
I've got a
about that, as opposed
500
to the.
milliliter one. It's a big chunky boy.
That's a big chunky boy. Let's see. I would also recommend, this is a weird but small one, that I saw
Hmm.
people using really thick wraps on some of their stuff and talking about like, oh, it'll keep everything together. And I actually think that'll usually cause them to snap and spatter more.
I I
So,
use thick
uh,
rafts too, but I don't know that like as long as you're aware of that you're going to have snap and
do
spatter.
you bevel or
I
angle
do
the
bevel.
edges
I
so
bevel
it's
the
easier to
edges.
get under that lip?
Yeah.
Yeah, I find that's easier to pop up too.
Hmm.
Um, my Saturn can be a little finicky if I do like a sharp edge.
Hmm.
Sometimes it can cause fails if I've got
Hmm.
something else wrong. It's one of the
Hmm.
kind of contributing factors, but I still would
Hmm.
generally do it.
I've seen an uncomfortable amount of people say they keep the resin printer in the bedroom. Like I don't. I'm definitely not one of the people that say you should freak out and worry about like having this thing in your house. Bedroom is probably not the place. Like the only worse
No,
option would be nursery.
right?
Like bathroom is a better choice.
Reusing gloves I have seen, which
How? I've
just
reused them occasionally, but only when I know I didn't get anything on them.
yeah, like maybe from like alcohol clean to support pull off,
Hmm.
maybe. But yeah, just reusing them from like multiple prints I've seen in
Mm.
videos, and I'm just like, how do
Mm.
you do that?
Yeah. Now, if you do want to reuse gloves, you can actually get some like lab gloves, like big old shoulder length thick boys. That's definitely safer, but you are committing to cleaning those now
Yeah,
as part of your process. Is now clean your gloves.
disposable nitro for the win.
Yeah. Well, do not store your cleaning supplies near flammable things or things that are likely to catch fire. Like never near the fireplace. One of the things I do recommend having is just a little squirt bottle that you fill with alcohol, which, by the way, that's going to make a very flammable thing when you squirt it, but it's great
Yes.
for cleaning things. So, but do be aware. Do not smoke while you are working with the
Don't
resin.
shoot your hot end with it.
Do not
Your
shoot your
FDM.
hot. Yeah, do not use this on yeah. But for resin printing, having a squirt bottle filled with alcohol is a great thing. But also keep in mind, with your alcohol and your cleaning stuff, keep that in a place that is not going to be a fire hazard. Like keep it on the metal tray. Do like keep it near brick, not wood. Like the thing that the alcohol itself is probably more of a danger than the resin itself.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else? Any last tips? Any last things for our audience?
Double checking. I think we've hit most of the ones I had.
Yeah. If you do, will say you wash your tools, especially, but just use that squirt bottle of alcohol to wash your tools off between things, and also remember that anything you use on the printer is contaminated. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you, C Catlet, for this one. I meant to bring this up. For all of the resins and the alcohols and every chemical, you can look up the ILM-SDS, which is the safety sheet that talks about the safety concerns for the chemicals involved. All of the resins will have all the reputable resins will have these available. Usually you can just find it on their website. Just search for SDS, brand name of resin,
Even my
or
really cheap sketchy
MSDS.
resin had one. So
Yeah. This is another reason that I'm gonna I don't like using cheap sketchy resins, because I want to be able to trust that the SDS sheet is semi accurate.
yeah, I will say my Anycubic Tenacious mix right now is printing just so beautifully, and it
Isn't
was
it
a
great?
splurge, but it's so nice.
I know. Elegoo plus Tenacious, Anycubic plus Tenacious, heck, even Soriatec
Oh yeah,
ABS, like with Soriatec Tenacious,
right.
is so wonderful to print with. I don't know why anybody would want to struggle through the cheap stuff.
James is calling out the MSDS stands for Material Safety Data Sheet. Yep.
Yeah, thank you, James.
If you're
Do
dealing
review
with
that.
OSHA inspections,
Yeah.
you'll need to know where that is, for instance.
All right. If you have any questions, feel free to email us at podcast@printyourgame.com or throw it in the comment section. We definitely want to address them. There's some great videos. The Goobertown video is probably the definitive one for resin, and I would look at the Uncle Jesse videos for FDM safety. So those are two great channels to talk about this.
Yep.
All right. Anything to shout out to, Kristen?
I said it kind of at the beginning of the episode, but just as a reminder, September is the Paint September Teal awareness thing. So if you're on social media and you want to post hashtag Paint September Teal, if you're doing a mini and painting it up, it's to drive awareness of ovarian cancer as a thing that people don't really have a lot of education about.
So until next time, I'm Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Perrin.
I'm Kristen Sowards, also known as Seventh Mastery. Don't forget to use your screen protector.
And we'll see you all next time.
Bye-bye.